What's up, everybody? I am your host, an inexperienced projectionist who has no idea what aspect ratio is, and that is my co-host, the Ticket Ripper Guy. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate Fresh Meat Review of Ozgood Perkins' highly anticipated Longlegs. You guys know how it goes. We just arrived home from the theater and have not spoken a single word to each other about the film. That means no elbow nudges in the seat, no hallway talk on the way out, and definitely no car chatter. We walk straight in the door and right into the studio. Now, if this is your first Fresh Meat review, I will explain how it goes. So the first half of this episode is no spoilers. So if you were on the fence about seeing the film, but you don't want it ruined, we got you covered. Then, after a fair warning, we will then jump right into the nitty-gritty and talk about everything we loved and hated about this movie. Man, I have been waiting on this movie for a while now.
Yeah, I remember the first preview for this movie that you showed me. God, it seemed like at the end of last year, beginning of the year, something like that. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, so I first heard about it a little while after its initial festival run, and then we covered Oz Perkins' Gretel and Hansel. And while doing my research for that movie, I discovered that Longlegs was written and directed by Oz Perkins. So, and on top of the festival buzz and discovering how awesome Gretel and Hansel was, I just got really excited to see this movie.
I shared your excitement. I know this was a big one for you. I think when I watched this preview, I had made the comment, and I think that other people compared it to Silence of the Lambs, but I'd said it seems like a mix between Silence of the Lambs and Seven. And I kind of stand by that now that I've seen it. And for anybody who doesn't know, he is a huge fan of the movie Seven.
I love Seven.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
So
What's in the box?
Figured that this one's probably going to be one that you ended up enjoying.
I typically really anticipate maybe 4 movies a year. I mean, there's other movies that I anticipate, but there's, maybe 3 or 4 that I am really excited about. I want to be at the theater when it comes out, like opening night, and then I want to talk about it, and this was on that list. And, another movie that was on that list was In a Violent Nature, which we went to, and Maxine. So, we've knocked out kind of 3 of my big anticipating movies for the year. The next one I'm really excited about is Terrifier.
Yeah, Terrifier. That's going to be good shit. Seems like so long away. We're getting there.
Yeah,
we just got
there.
a couple months left of awful heat, and then we can enjoy Halloween.
So what is this movie about, you may ask? Well, in pursuit of a serial killer, an FBI agent uncovers a series of occult clues that she must solve to end his terrifying killing spree. The ratings for this is Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 87%, IMDb gave it a 7.7 out of 10, and the Google average audience review is a 3.1 out of 5. I will say that I've read a lot of reviews the past couple days, and this, much like In a Violent Nature, definitely seems like a movie that you either really like or you really don't. I haven't seen a lot of in the middle stuff. There's some people that went into this and they're like, this was terrible. And there's other people that have went into it thinking like, this is really great. It's super creepy.
It's kind of one of those movies, another one where if you're not big on slow burns, you're probably not going to care for this one.
Yeah, this is a movie that you kind of sit there and you watch kind of the slow burn happen, but the payoffs that are throughout the movie are good.
Yeah, this one, In a Violent Nature was very, very violent as advertised.
Yeah.
It was a slow burn, but there was like some really amazing practical effects throughout the entire movie. This one, it's kind of got to be it's just this more of like a psychological trying to figure out who the killer is.
Or what's going on. That's a
Yeah,
big part
yeah,
of it. Is what the fuck is going on here?
yeah, definitely. On the psychological side, that's where it lies in horror. Also, imagery with it. I'd say between those two things. But if you're not big on that type of movie or slow burns, this one might be. I could see how you would not care for it.
Yeah, this movie, like you said earlier, Silence of the Lambs comes up a lot with this movie. And I will say, because I don't want to, we're obviously not going to spoil anything yet. We'll talk about it later on, but I will say that much like Silence of the Lambs is kind of a very direct forward FBI hunting a serial killer, this is a lot more of that is going on, but you're trying to figure out what's going on. It's not a straightforward hunt for this killer.
Like Seven. Very much
Yes.
like Seven,
Yeah.
where you're trying to figure out what the fuck is in this box.
Or, why is he killing people, with the 7 deadly sins and all that stuff? Yeah, you're trying to figure out what exactly is happening. And that is where this movie kind of veers off from, say, Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, I was very happy with that comparison from just seeing the previews after watching it. I honestly would put it closer to Seven than I would Silence of the Lambs. Because like you said, Silence of the Lambs is very straightforward.
Yeah, I have a comparison that I actually read in someone's review that I really like, but I'm going to save it for the spoiler part because I feel like there's a really cool thing about this movie that you don't know until you get through the movie. And I don't want to give it away by saying this comparison, but we'll talk about it later. So, Longlegs is a 2024 American horror thriller film written and directed by Ozgood Perkins. It stars Micah Monroe, Nicolas Cage, who also produced the film through his Saturn Films production company. I actually didn't know that until we hit the theater. In November of 2022, it was reported that Ozgood Perkins would direct from a script he wrote. Nicolas Cage signed on to produce and star in the horror thriller film as a serial killer. In February of 2023, Micah Monroe signed on as FBI agent Lee Harker. The following month, Alicia Witt and Blair Underwood joined the cast. You know how we always have these really weird coincidences that occur when we do these episodes. So the next movie that we are covering that I had already started working on long before we went and seen this movie is Urban Legend from 1998. And the main character in that movie is played by Alicia Witt. I know you're not great with names, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you who she plays in Longlegs is she is the mom.
Okay.
Yeah, so one of the main characters in the movie we're doing this review on is also the actress is the main character of the movie we are currently working on.
Yeah, that tends to happen a lot. A lot of weird like date coincidences, actors being in movies back to back. I mean, shit, we found out about this movie actually covering a movie that you had never heard of at the time, and just in researching how beautiful that movie was, we found out about this.
Yeah, going back to when I originally heard about it, because I try to keep track of the horror festival movies because we know that either a year from then or 2 years from then, we're going to probably see this movie in the theaters. It's going to be the big, cool horror movie of that year. And so I'd heard about it then, and I was really excited because it sounded like Seven or Silence of the Lambs. But when we did the episode for Gretel and Hansel, and I was like, man, I love how he directs and I love his cinematography style. And then I connected the two, and that's what got me so excited for this movie. So, principal photography took place in Vancouver, British Columbia from January 16th to February 23rd, with, I'm going to butcher this guy's name, Andres Arochi, serving as the cinematographer. In February of 2023, Neon acquired the film's North American rights at the European film market. The film had a screening at Los Angeles Beyond Fest on May 31st, 2024. Longlegs premiered at the Egyptian Theater Hollywood in Los Angeles on July 8th, 2024. All right, so let's talk about this movie. So the first thing I want to bring up is the absolutely amazing, phenomenal marketing campaign this movie had. If you don't know, during every trailer, they released 3 or 4 trailers for this movie, which come to find out was on purpose because each trailer had this coded text on it. And it looks like symbols or whatever, like no one really knew what it was for a little while, but it turns out it is a little message. And people started like decoding this shit, and it became this huge like I don't want to say like Blair Witch, but it was like something that when you were anticipating the movie, groups of people were getting together and trying to like get these clues and figure it out. And it kind of has that fan interaction. That's what makes people so excited to see it. They got these clues. They released all of these like crime scene photos and stuff that they don't spoil anything. That was another great thing. They managed to drum up all this interest without spoiling the movie, but it was awesome because the crime scene photos look fantastic.
Yeah, and I think this is something we actually talked about before we even seen it briefly, was the marketing on this. 10 out of 10 for marketing.
Yep.
I wouldn't put it up there with Blair Witch because that's a whole nut. I mean, that's just what they did can't happen anymore with the age of the internet. It's just very similar to the Cannibal Holocaust, what they did back in the day. That wouldn't happen now. But for as of today's, yeah, I remember they released that super creepy like teaser you showed me. I mean, that was a long time ago, and they slowly leaked out these trailers with these coded messages, and then the website. Like, how many movies really go create a website with crime scene photos from the actual movie? And I'm so glad that you had mentioned that to me, and I went and checked it out because you actually recognize those crime scenes whenever you're watching the movie, and just the amount of time just for those photos that they put into putting them up to the website, because you could have showed me those pictures and I would have never been able to say that's a movie.
Yeah, so a cool thing about the website too is it wasn't something that they advertised. It was the website is longlegs.net. And so, obviously if like you were trying to go to the movie website, you would try .com, and that doesn't exist. The only reason I found out about the website is because I was looking at these groups that were trying to decipher these cool codes and what all these weird pictures and stuff were. And I came across somebody was like, well, here's all like the crime scene pictures. And it's a really simple website. Like you go to it, the only thing you can do is look at the 3 groups of crime scene photos. They don't advertise the movie. They don't talk about the movie.
3 really creepy videos too that don't give anything away, but they are very just creepy. They go right along with this movie. I will say, marketing wise, I love when a movie they do interactive stuff like that. But almost when the marketing is so good, it's almost to a fault sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it builds a movie up before you go watch it. And I've mentioned this many times on the show before, The Witch, how well that was marketed as the scariest movie that had come out in that decade. And I remember being so underwhelmed when I seen it in theaters. And obviously we've covered that movie. I absolutely love that movie now. But sometimes when you build it up so much, there's nowhere to go but down. And like I said, it was done so good it's almost to a fault.
Yeah, the very first trailer, it wasn't even a trailer, it was a teaser that came out for this, was a 911 call from a guy who was talking about his daughter isn't really his daughter, and like basically talking about how he was going to kill her while she was sleeping. And that was it. And that was genius. That's
I forgot that's what it was.
Yeah.
That was the first First thing we ever heard. And I remember me and you sitting and being like, oh man, that's creepy. Like, what the fuck is this about?
Yeah, and they didn't even like at the end of it, they didn't be like, "Oh, go see Longlegs," July, whatever. It was literally that was it. The only reason that you connected it to the movie was because it said Longlegs teaser. That was it. Yeah, man, it really good marketing. Great job by whoever Neon hired to do the marketing. Was a smart move.
They nailed in the marketing too, the whole imagery, which is one of the things that makes this a horror movie. They nailed that so well after watching the movie and thinking back at the marketing that they did. Thought they killed that. All the marketing for it's super creepy.
Yep. So, cinematography. We went into this movie thinking Oz Perkins he has a really great eye for film. Like he knows how to set up shots and what shots are going to be visually pleasing. I think we talked about it on the Gretel and Hansel after show and like the Patreon where we went into like the cinematography and how they did like everything is like so symmetrical because you don't realize your brain loves symmetrical stuff. Like it loves to look at things and things be kind of perfect looking. And he does a really good job with that.
But then being able to slightly throw something off too, at particular scenes when they want you to, when you have a symmetrical movie like that and they want a particular scene to be very unsettling, they can throw that off slightly. And I think that's the beauty of shooting most of it in symmetry like that.
Yeah, and you don't even know why those visuals are making you feel unsettled because that's something that goes on in the background of your brain. I thought the color pattern even is like that, a lot of yellows and stuff and like burgundy reds and like really kind of gray washed out skies. Very unsettling, very dreadful.
Gloomy, I would say very, and this feels like an old school movie. Like it's shot very gloomy, but it feels like you can tell it's a newer movie, but it just has that feel the way it's shot.
It looks clean like a new movie, but it has like the color and stuff
washed out color
of because the movie actually takes place in like the mid-90s because we see because of pictures on the wall that Bill Clinton is currently the president. So this goes on, this is not present time.
See, and that's the thing. I didn't even catch the Bill Clinton being the president, but this feels like an old school, like 90s feeling movie. Like it has that, I mean, I don't even know what it is necessarily with the film grain, but I know the colors. The colors were very much, had the feel of like a gloomy psychological horror in the 90s.
Yeah, we talked about that with his last film, with the Gretel and Hansel, where the colors that he did everything in where it's just like fall witch stuff, creepy.
Yeah, that
and they had like, some bright yellows, but it wasn't like exciting yellow. It was like dreadful yellow, I guess. I don't know how to explain it.
They did a lot of in that movie, a lot of the fall type colors, but they did it on black, and they did a lot of, putting these brighter colors over black to make certain scenes pop. I will say that, with I don't remember who the cinematographer was for Gretel and Hansel, and going into this, I didn't know how much of the cinematography to look forward to, because that's when I think of beautiful movies, that's the first movie that comes to mind. Like I remember talking about during the episode and even before we did it, I didn't even know why I liked that movie so much. There was just something about it that made me really like it. And watching it after a couple times, I realized it's the cinematography and the colors, and it just has that perfect October horror feel to it. But we didn't know how much of that was the cinematographer and how much of that was Oz Perkins. I will say I did pay close attention, and there's certain ways that the camera angles and stuff were shot, and certain, like, especially there's a couple scenes like looking down a hallway where they kind of make it. I don't know if this is a fisheye, what they're kind of shooting it in, but it makes it feel almost never ending. So I think, and those come up in Gretel and Hansel as well. So I think a lot of that was him, but it is not on the same level of cinematography that Gretel and Hansel was on, where you're not going to think back at this movie and remember it as the cinematography being the best part of the movie. And I think that's kind of answers our question a little bit as far as on Gretel and Hansel. Was it more Oz Perkins or was it more insert name here? Because I'm bad with names.
Yeah, that cinematographer is actually the one who's doing the Alien that's about to come out.
Yeah,
So
and
that's how the film that he's working on, just completely separate movie.
and that's the only thing that I'm really, really looking forward to seeing, the aliens. Because we've talked about this before. I'm not a big sci-fi horror fan, but when I found that out, I really want to watch that movie just for the cinematographer that's in it. But yeah, I don't know if you would agree with me there. This movie, beautiful shot, has great cinematography, but I don't think it's on the same level as Gretel and Hansel.
I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about this one that I really liked though, because they shoot a lot of stuff with the main character where she's offset a little bit, and it makes you start looking in the background because you're waiting for him to be back there.
That's the asymmetry too,
And
what they're doing in those scenes.
and a lot of them he's not back there. So it gets you like it gets you anticipating for just to see this guy pop out of somewhere, and you don't always get that. And it's great that they kind of keep you guessing every time they do that. But I personally think the highlight of this movie is the acting.
Yeah. Yeah, the Nicolas Cage, man, he absolutely kills it playing the
Yeah.
Longlegs in this.
He is, man, I don't want to give away too much, but I want to say if you didn't know that was Nicolas Cage, I don't know if you would know just by seeing him. He looks completely different. And I mean, he did a phenomenal job. I
Yeah.
mean, he did a phenomenal job.
I'll say for all the Silent of the Lambs comparisons, I think he puts Buffalo Bill to shame.
Yeah.
He's much
way
much
scarier.
creepier.
So,
Yeah.
But I don't want to let like Nicolas Cage kind of overshadow Micah Monroe. So a lot of people know her from a really good movie called It Follows, where she plays this I don't know if she was like 19, 20, she's somewhere in there. And you kind of see her, she's like this average kind of teenage girl, and that's where a lot of people kind of know her from. In this movie, fucking completely different. Literally the opposite of what we've seen her do before. And the character that she plays in this is like she's not like this super smart, super badass FBI agent. She's like really socially awkward, kind of lives in her own head. She has these kind of odd like stare in off into the distance while someone's talking to her. These kind of like odd little ticks, and she pulls it off. It's super believable.
Yeah, the best way I can explain it with her character is the way I felt, through the first half of the movie. There's something off about her, and it gave me the feeling very early on that something happened in her past that kind of affects her. And it just even if it's something, it end up being something she don't remember, but there's just something really off.
Yeah, and especially because pretty much immediately, because the opening has kind of a cool opening, but you kind of see immediately that she's odd. And then you kind of get introduced to it more throughout the film. And one of the first things that you see is this weird relationship with her mother that she calls her mother on the phone. And it's a weird conversation. Not like they're talking about something weird, but their interactions with each other are weird.
And her mom too.
Her mom is,
that's even more off. Like,
Yeah.
you think there's something off with her, there's something even more off with her mom. Like, so you have these two people going back and forth with their dialogue, and it's just, you can tell that there is something fucking off.
Yeah, there's something going on here. And that's what's great about this movie. That this kind of goes perfectly with the story that I want to talk about next without ruining the story. But this movie is mostly you just sitting there trying to figure out what is going on. I felt just as clueless as the FBI agents did.
Right. I'll say halfway through this movie, I was still completely clueless as to what the movie was even really about. You know, I knew the basis of it. It was this killer they were looking for. But there was
It
times
had
in
been
this movie where I was very, very like, and I don't want to give anything away that happens in the story until the second half. There was times where I was just like, okay, what the fuck is going on here? And one thing with her character in particular, with her being the main character, is they do no character building for her. You just kind of jump into it.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's off and there's no character building leading up to it, it really leaves you in the dark. And that's the beauty of this movie. And if you like psychological horror, you will really enjoy it. It's the trying to figure out what is going on. Very similar to like Seven, or it's not a horror movie, but something like Shutter Island, where you're just trying to figure out the whole time the movie's going on. Like, you feel like there's something in front of you that you're missing that should be obvious, but you can't find it.
Yeah, I mean, it throws you for a lot of loops because right off the bat, and this shouldn't mess too many people up, but right off the bat, you find out that this serial killer, this has been going on for 30 years and they're this clueless. Another thing is, like, there is something major that happens later on in the movie. And once it happens, you're just like, where do we go from here? Is the movie about to end, or, what is going to happen now? And it does a really good job of throwing you for a loop, and you're not done because, 10 minutes after that, you get thrown for another loop. And then 15 minutes later after that, you get thrown for another loop. And the last like 45 minutes of this movie is you kind of having an idea of what's going on and then getting the rug pulled out from under you. All right, so when it comes to this movie, would you recommend someone go to the theater, wait for VOD, or skip it?
I would say if you like psychological horror, if you're a fan of like Silence of the Lambs or Seven, which I don't personally even consider Seven really a horror movie, but if you like those type of movies, you definitely want to go see this. I would say if you're somebody who goes to the movies once or twice a year to watch a movie, I would hold off on it. If you're somebody who goes every month or two to watch a new movie, definitely go check it out.
Yeah, I can agree with that. One thing I do want to throw in here, though, before we move on, and I think that this goes along with my recommendation of going to the theater and see it, is the fucking music.
Yeah.
The music is on par with like The Shining.
The score is very good.
And I remember sitting in the theater and you get these like just super out of nowhere, loud, fast, like violin, like you would get in The Shining or something. And just hearing that in the theater was awesome.
Yeah, there's only one what I would consider a jump scare in this movie that's really creepy. And I think being in the theater definitely, because, these psychological horror movies are not known for jump scares. It's not, you don't have a killer jumping out of the bushes and cutting somebody's head off. But there is one particular scene that's really creepy and it kind of flashes. And I think that would definitely be better in the theater. They do such a good job with the score. There's one part of the movie, and I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not gonna say it. Like there's an important part coming up, and you don't even realize there's a score playing so lightly in the back.
I know what you're talking about.
When it goes off,
I thought it was
I thought the AC.
same.
I thought the AC in the movie theater went off or something, and I'm like, what?
Yep.
I've never heard that. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, you can't hear an AC like that. It's not that loud in the movie theater, but you don't even realize that it wasn't silent. It's like they add this slight
It's like a
white noise in the background just so when that moment comes, they can cut it off to bring that much like unsettling creepiness to that moment.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest arguments for going to the theater is the sound. Definitely. Well, that's going to be it for our spoiler-free half. If you have already seen the movie or don't mind spoilers, stick around because we are about to jump into the meat and potatoes of this film. If you're not sticking around with us, thank you for listening. We will catch you next time. Keep an eye out for our next regular episode, which drops Monday morning, where we are covering a classic 90s slasher. All right, if you're still here, welcome to the spoiler half of our fresh meat review of Oz Perkins' Longlegs. So, first thing I want to talk about is what did you think about our two main characters?
Thought they were great. I think we covered that in the first half a little bit. So, Nicolas Cage playing the killer did an absolute phenomenal job. I will say I think he is the shining light of the movie. Yeah, and then with the God, what'd they make her last name? Marker. It should have been Parker or
It's like Harker or something
Harker,
like that.
yeah. Agent Harker is, I think, for the story, kind of where because we find out with her in the very beginning, now that we're in the spoiler-free part, when I say they didn't do any character building, we jump straight into her calling a previous murder, which you do. When I first seen this, it threw me for a loop because I'm like, are we starting from the solve of the crime? Is that going to be the beginning and it's going to work its way back and through flashbacks or something? But it ended up being a completely separate killer. And we find out basically she has some psychic powers.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was talking about, that this movie's not, a straight direct route like Silence of the Lambs is.
Yeah,
this has a lot more stuff going on.
Yeah, that really threw me for a loop. And that's one thing they did a great job. All the teaser trailers and all the promotional stuff that came out with this, from what I remember, they don't tip the hat that she is like kind of psychic.
Not at all.
That's how she gets put on this case to begin with, because they're so clueless as to what's going on after 30 years. They're willing to exhaust any resource. And they do some tests on her and find out she has some extraordinary intuition. It's not on the level of being able to literally call anything, but it's
she gets a feeling.
Yeah.
And she's typically right.
She kind of shines a little bit. Just a little bit though. And yeah, so with that part, with her character, I think she did such a good job playing that just you have an idea that there's something in her past that happened, and it turns out in the movie it's something that she didn't remember, but it still affects her mentally so much. I thought she did an amazing job playing that. Definitely thought she was a little weird, but Nicolas Cage playing Longlegs, man, I can't think of a horror lead with this much character. Like he, very, very similar to Buffalo Bill, how Buffalo Bill talks and he has character and he gives you those creepy vibes. It's like that times 1,000. And I really didn't see that coming from Nicolas Cage before I heard he was playing this part. So yeah, kudos to him. Thought both the characters were great.
I will say that I think that they did a really good job writing them, because we really have a yin and a yang here. She's very odd. Not to say he's not odd, but from a normal perspective, she's odd. She's socially awkward. She kind of has these weird tics and weird stuff about her.
She's quiet too.
Yeah,
I see
very
where you're
quiet.
going here.
And
Yeah.
he's very, like, you see him interact with people, even though he's very strange, he has no problem being strange to strangers and kind of like playing that off like it's normal when it's not. So yeah, you have really like two opposite characters here. And not only are they kind of going somewhat head to head, one's on one side, one's on the other, but then you find out later on that they're tied together. They kind of sprout from the same thing almost. These are not strangers like it appears to be for most of the film. And I think they did a really, really interesting, good job with that. The thing about Longlegs is when I first seen him, I don't know if you heard me say it, but I said, holy fuck, because it did not look like Nicolas Cage.
No, it's very, very creepy. Like powders his face. It gives him this like overly pale look, which is really creepy. And just the way he plays the character is just so much unlike Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, going back to what we were talking about a minute ago, where the all the cool promotional stuff, they never let out the fact that she has some kind of like somewhat psychic ability, and another thing they never let out was this is a satanic movie. And earlier I said I heard a really good comparison that I didn't want to say because I didn't want to ruin it. But I seen somebody compare this is like Silence of the Lambs meets Rosemary's Baby.
Hmm.
And I was like, great. Because I had no fucking idea that this was about Satanism. We were going to essentially see Satan himself in this movie. I never would have dreamed that that was going to be a part of this plot.
Yeah, I think they do a really good job too with it being a satanic movie, but it not feeling like every satanic movie.
Well, you don't
Like,
even really know, like, he may be a Satanist, but, and they show you that about halfway through the film, but at the end you find out, like, no, like, he's, like, in good with the actual devil.
yeah.
Which makes this story even fucking more wilder.
Yeah, they did such a good job at making this not feel like a Satanism movie and not tipping the hat that I didn't even really think about it being a Satanism movie until you just made that comment. It totally is.
Yeah, it's like I said, there's a difference in somebody just like believing in Satan and doing Satanist stuff, and then somebody who is actually doing things where, evil itself shows itself. Because there's no way he could pull this stuff off without actual Satan or evil being a part of it.
Oh yeah, it's very clear. So essentially, he makes these families do essentially like the father of the family kill the kids and then kill themselves, and he's not there. So there's like this is legit. This isn't like oh well, it's just some guy who worships Satan that's actually a killer and is murdering people, and he's just fucked up mentally in the head, and he kills people because of his love for Satan. No, it's not like that at all. Like he's actually
He's
Satan,
the real deal.
Yes, Satan is actually at work. He's doing supernatural things and very, very obviously supernatural things. And they do such a good job at not tipping their hat. I had no idea. So, going into this, you're thinking like Silence of the Lambs, you're thinking real world stuff. You're, what's possible within the realm of real life. And so it's very confusing when they're talking about these murders that happen, but they know that he was never actually present in the house when they happened. And your brain is trying to wrap itself around that idea of how could he possibly be doing this and killing these entire families if he's not even there. And Yeah, they like I said, they did such a good job at not tipping their hat to that, and it doesn't feel like that movie. And then when you find that out, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, our man Christopher Hansen is planning to go. We were actually talking about it because he's planning to go see it, and because he's taking him and his wife are going to go see it. And I told him, I said, don't know anything. Don't look into the movie because I don't know if he's watched any of the trailers or anything. He doesn't know a whole lot about the movie. And I said, go into this completely blank. Just roll right into it because it throws you for loops, man. It really does. It makes your brain work. The one thing that I will say about this is I'm really excited to watch it a second time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's one of those movies when you go back and watch it knowing the end, I think that we're gonna pick up on a lot more things that we missed the first time around.
Yeah, because I mean, there's still some stuff that I'm not 100% sure on, like the whole doll thing. What is that metal ball that's inside of the head of the doll that and we know from the movie that this obviously has some kind of effect on the family. But I don't understand. I don't understand how the doll thing works, what the little metal ball inside the doll head is doing. And I feel like maybe this is something that when we go back and watch it a second or third time, we're going to be able to start kind of piecing this stuff together because your mind is moving constantly trying to process what you're seeing and you're thinking constantly like trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm sure that my mind just kind of skipped over some stuff.
Yeah, we were honestly probably over halfway through the movie, and I knew that we were gonna be doing this review, and I was thinking, "How in the fuck am I gonna do this review?" And I have no idea what's going on in this movie. Like, what the fuck are we gonna talk about? How confused we were?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. With the metal ball thing, I don't think that they ever show anything that kinda tips the hat of what that's supposed to be. I do know that the coroner or doctor or whoever is examining this doll when they first find one of the actual dolls, when he pulls the metal ball out, he puts something up next to it, and it's letting off this frequency.
Yeah, well, it
And
looks like one of those things they put on the woman's belly.
ultrasound,
Yeah,
like
that's what I think
yeah,
it is.
like an ultrasound thing, and there's nothing in it. It's just a metal ball, but it's letting off this frequency. And I'm wondering if that frequency has something to do with causing the people to snap. As of them, if they explain that earlier in the movie, or not explain it, but give a hint to what that is, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Micah Monroe, when she hears the frequency, she starts seeing these like quick flashes of all of these snakes crawling around and people getting killed. That's one thing this movie has of a ton of is awesome imagery. One of the things that fucking freaked me out is when they found that doll's body in the floor. I was like, because it looks very realistic, and I'm like, did he make a child's body into like a doll? Like, did he find a way to
I did,
preserve it?
I did too.
And when it then you see it laying on the table in the corners, I'm like, oh my god, this is like a kid that's been I don't know fucking dipped in epoxy or something. Yeah, man, this movie just has so much. Just that's creepy. What the fuck is going on? That's pretty much
And
most of
then
the movie.
And then in the dolls, he uses their real hair, I guess, or real hair. And that's another thing that throws you for a loop because you're like, okay, you know, this obviously he's like killed a kid and something to do with this doll. And then you find out that the doctor's like, no, it's just plastic. It's just a plastic doll. But then you find out that it's made with real hair. So is this the hair from the girls that he's killed? He's making these dolls out of. I don't know that definitely throws you for a loop. The imagery in this movie, there's one particular scene, and it's very fast, and I can't wait to watch it again so I can pause it. At this point, I think it's what I was talking about as the only jump scare of the movie, and it is where she finds the picture of Longlegs from her childhood in her room. When she first sees it, they do like a really loud like noise with the score, and they do a flash, and it's almost like a negative image, but you took the white and added color into it. But it was so fast, I couldn't exactly see what flashed across the screen. I don't know if you caught what that was.
I have no idea.
Like, I feel like it may have been a negative image of Longlegs' face, but with red and black instead of white and black. But it was so quick, and I thought it's just another example of the really creepy imagery that's added in this.
One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is you get this shot of this doll head sitting on the I don't know, the table or whatever, and it slowly fades into Nicolas Cage standing outside with the suitcases, but his this doll face is over top of his face, and there's they're both transparent, and it's so fucking freaky looking.
Well, they do such a good job matching the faces up that at first, and because his face is already so pale from this powdered clown makeup almost that he puts over his face, that for a second I thought he was wearing a mask.
Yeah, it looks like he's got, almost like when we did House of Wax, that very plain looking face.
Yeah, I thought it takes probably 2 or 3 seconds after the fade for you to realize, oh no, that was just a really good fade. This is his phenomenal face.
Another thing though is when and this is what I was talking about earlier, where there's a scene close to the end, and you think, where are we going to go from here?
Oh, yeah,
which is where he slams his fucking face in the table repeatedly, and it looks amazing.
That's
a 10 out of 10.
Coolest looking part of the movie for me. The best part of the movie, period, for me. But yeah, when he slams his face, because it's so unexpected, because this is the main character, the killer that they've been looking for this entire movie, and they finally get him, and they get to talk to him, and he gives them absolutely hardly nothing that you would think, if you were in real life, if you heard this, you would be like, what? This guy's crazy. He's just rambling crazy shit. And then he just starts fucking slamming his head onto this table. And he does it so much. I think it's 4 hits in, half of his face is just caved in and gone. And the practical effects on it were fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, you can see his jawbone and his I don't know what the fuck happens to his nose, but you can see
ripped off, and you can see just the bone where the cartilage on his nose, I guess, was essentially caved in or knocked off in the process of him slamming his head. He totally has a Michael Jackson nose.
Yeah. All right, so one of the last things I want to touch on is the fucking twist ending. So it turns out, through the whole movie, we see him in his little doll making studio where he lives. And then we find out at the end that this is in the fucking basement of our lead FBI agent's childhood home, where her mother currently lives. Because we see scenes of her talking to her mom at their house, and then scenes of him kind of hanging out, and then the end of the movie turns out this is the same fucking place. And the whole entire time she's been hunting for this killer, he is living in her mother's basement. That was fucking wild. Fucking wild.
I kind of got an idea that was before they showed that. So the scene where she's in her mom's house and she goes and that she's about to get that key to unlock the door and she gets interrupted. So I knew that there was something major in the movie. That had to be something major in the storyline. So when I found out that essentially Longlegs had visited her as a kid and her mom knew more than what she was saying, I thought about, is this is this guy like, is this where he's living? Is this where he's making the dolls?
Oh, I never thought
I even
that.
thought about like it possibly being her dad or something, but I knew it was somehow connected. But yeah, I thought really, really good twist. I thought the whole thing with her mom
Oh, yeah,
being
that was
like, that was the
wild.
twist I didn't see coming. Like, I thought her mom may have known something. Well, they make it very obvious at one point that, I mean, he tells her right before he smashes his face in to ask your mom. But for her to have been the one that was his accomplice through this whole thing, and then at that point, you're like, why? And we get these really awesome shots too throughout the movie of these black sheets and these red eyes start glowing underneath.
Oh, I loved it.
And then you find out at this point that it's actually the black sheets that are over these dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And these dolls are what is possessing these families. And before they take the sheets off of the dolls, like you see these red, like Satan eyes glowing under the black sheets. That's just another example of the imagery. And then going back to the twist ending, when they do the reveal that her mom is in on it. So she goes to her mom's house with the other FBI agent, and the other agent stays in the car. When they do the shot of the agent with the mom standing in the background,
I was literally waiting for you to finish so I could talk about this scene.
Yeah, that was my last big thing I really wanted to mention. I thought that was one of the coolest shots of the movie because, like you said earlier, they set so many of these up where you think somebody's in the background.
You think
but
it's like
they're
The
not.
Strangers.
Yeah, very very much so, and they do that a couple times throughout the movie, and there ends up being nothing there. So when they shoot this scene, which is an obvious setup for somebody being in the background, you almost overlook it, and then it makes you double take. And you can't even tell it's her mom at first either.
She
She's
blends
super
in
creepy.
with like the trees and shit back there.
Yeah.
And she's standing perfectly still. And we got that shot of the FBI agent. And then you see her move. And it's like, at first I thought, well, maybe it's, the trees moving behind her. And then you realize, nope, it's a solid person holding a gun.
Yeah, so I noticed pretty early before she moved, I noticed it was her, but I had to do that double take. Like I was like, oh, there's a person. Oh, and then I looked again. I don't know if you heard me in my seat. I said, oh shit. Like I rarely ever say anything, and it was probably so low you probably wouldn't have been able to hear me. But as soon as I realized that there was somebody back there, I was like, oh shit.
She shoots her from the driver's side window, and then she walks around the car and shoots her again from the other window. And then, then we find out, man, like this car that they had been looking for is literally parked in this little tiny open garage in the back of her mom's house. Because, if you go on the website and you see all the FBI's photos, they actually have a enhanced photo of the car that they're looking for. And it's fucking right there. It's been right there the whole time.
Yeah.
And obviously he's been there a long time because, he first approached the mom about this when she was a little girl. So he's been right under her nose the whole time. Yeah. The whole last 30 minutes of this movie is a roller coaster. I mean, we didn't even talk about the very, very end where she basically her FBI boss, she goes to the house thinking that he's in danger, and she gets there and her mom's there with the fucking a doll, and the family's possessed. And the dad even asks his wife hey, let's go to the kitchen, and she's like, oh, we'll be right back. And he's like, well, I'll be right back. You won't be, you'll still be in the kitchen. And I was just like, damn.
And I love that the mom, right before that dialogue happens, she's like the main character. She's so confused. She's almost speechless. And her mom looks at her and says, oh, she's already dead. She's already dead, and the daughter will be next. Meaning, no matter what you do, she's already dead. There's no saving her. He's about to murder her. And then right after that, he's like, yeah, I'll be back. You won't.
Yeah, right before they go back there, I don't know if you noticed, but the mom starts to try to break a little bit. Like she's almost like it's like she's in her body, kind of like Get Out, right? Where the person's trapped in there and they're kind of just watching everything, but they have no control over their body. And it was kind of like that what was going on with her because she starts kind of making these like weird faces like she's scared. And the husband like puts his hand or something on her knee the spell kicks back in, like
Yeah, yeah.
and it just makes you wonder like what I wish that we could see more of when these families get possessed and what happens. Because we know that the little girls are typically just obsessed with the doll. That's why they're last, I guess, because everyone else gets killed and then they ain't got to worry about her running off because she's like hypnotized by this doll.
Hypnotizes is a good word to use. We do see earlier in the movie another wife who gets axed in the back of the head. And I think Get Out is a very good comparison where they they are like acting like these like happy go lucky perfect wives, but you could tell for that split second that she knew that something was going on. It's like she was almost paralyzed in there.
Yeah, oh man, I can't wait to watch it again. I want to watch it again now knowing the story and just kind of watch it and not have to be like figuring the clues out, figuring out what's going on. But all right, so instead of favorite kill, because we don't get like a ton of kills, you get some kills in here, but it's pretty much just like family annihilation kind of deal. I figured let's do the creepiest part of the movie. So, what would you say is the part of the movie that creeped you out the most?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm just I don't know if it was the creepiest, but it was a very creepy part, and it was kind of the most standout thing of this movie, and it is where Longlegs slams his face in the table over and over again, because it's creepy in the fact that it's so random and you don't see it coming, and it's very violent, but it's not very quick. Like watching the movie, you're almost like, where the fuck are these FBI agents at? Like, how have they not gotten in here and stopped this guy yet? And it's just very, very drug out and very creepy.
Man, for me, I think it was when they found the doll in the floor. I mean, there's so many to pick from. I
Yeah,
mean,
there's
I
a
really love the face of the doll being like kind of translucent on his face when we're getting that shot, the head slamming into the table. But I feel like when they found the doll in the floor and I thought it was like a real kid's body somehow made to be a doll, this is when we're really first kind of diving into what's going on here. Like we get a kind of brief explanation from the FBI people before that, but this was like, oh fuck, like this dude is not just like a guy who goes in a house and kills a family. This is something else like I can't even put together in my head. It's so weird.
Yeah. Two moments for creepiness that I do want to mention that stood out that we haven't talked about yet. The first being in the very beginning of the movie where she gets the loud bangs on the door in her house.
That was a good one.
It was very much felt like this. It was very much the scene from The Strangers, but you have no idea that these two are connected or that he knows who she is in any way. So I thought that was really creepy because that's the moment you're kind of like, oh shit, what's going on here? And then the other one was where they were talking to the girl who actually had survived and she was in a comatose state, and they go back.
Oh my
and
God,
they
I forgot all
interview-
about that.
Yeah, they interview her and they do the flashback of her family almost like taking care of this doll, and it's a doll of her.
No, that's
And
wild. Yeah.
yeah, and particularly the creepiest part was when the mom cuts herself open and then she gets on her knees in front of this doll and starts stabbing it in the stomach. And you're like, holy shit, that's creepy. And what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, so another really good one was at the very end where her mom stands up and yells, "Hail Satan," right before she ends up having to kill her mom. I was like, damn, like your own mom, like your mom is literally now like in the pocket of the devil at this point.
Yeah, it's weird because her mom doesn't want to do this.
That's what I'm
Her
saying. It's
mom
like,
only does this to save her daughter's life, and she's very reluctant. And they show her throughout the history of her helping with some of these murders, and she's very upset and shooken up by it. And then by the end, it's almost like
she's with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's gotten locked in.
All right, so top of the head rating.
For me, I'm gonna give this movie a 4.0.
Okay. Really close. I gave it a 4.1.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go much higher than I did.
No, I mean, I really need to watch it again. I really do.
It is one of those movies that's probably gonna get better.
I'm
Watch it again.
I'm really excited to see it a second time. I will say that for me, it lived up to the hype. I would have liked to see the family murders more, which is I would have rated it higher if we could have seen more of the family murders. But man, I mean, that doesn't really knock it too much because you get so much weird, creepy shit, amazing imagery, things that are just confusing. And I think one of the best parts was the fact that her having this like somewhat psychic ability and this being like a satanic cult movie hidden in there and you not even going into this movie. I watched every fucking trailer multiple times. I've been through the website. I've been through where people were solving the stuff. And I that floored me. I had no idea any of that shit was in it. But yeah, I gave it a 4.1. I could watch it again and it could go higher, or I could watch it again and it might drop like, maybe point 0.5 or something. I
I
doubt it, but
I think both of ours would probably go up a little bit seeing it again. For me, the hype was so big going into it that, like I said, when they market something that good, it's almost downhill no matter what. I won't say it lived up to like the perfect 5 out of 5 hype that you was hearing before with the Rotten Tomatoes that had like 100% for a while. And it's hard not to get sucked into that. I will say, I think watching this again, it'll be much better because for me, where I say a 4 is being halfway through the movie and still being like, I have no idea what's going on here. Like I've not learned anything and we've watched half a movie. Watching it again, knowing the story and being able to look out for these things and these clues that they probably dropped that we didn't even catch, I think it'll make it a much, much, much better. Probably could go up 0.5, but I would say at least 0.2 or 3.
yeah, I will say I 100% need to process this movie. I have to think about this movie. I have to think about how I feel about it. But as of right now, despite all the big hype about it, I wasn't disappointed. It was a little more than what I was kind of hoping for. I definitely wasn't disappointed. I was pretty happy with it. Like I said, my only complaint could be I wish we would have seen more of the killers. We totally left out the part where they show those bodies that had been there a month and there's like maggots and stuff like I mean, there's just so much shit that we didn't even talk about.
Yeah, I wish they would have showed those crime scenes better because we know that they were done amazing because of the website that they released with the crime scene photos. Like anybody who's seen crime scene photos before or really into like true crime and have seen these things, I mean, it looks like a murder pictures of a crime scene that
Yeah.
was taken on like a Polaroid camera. Like it's done so well. I wish they would have showed more of that in the movie or even some flashbacks to more of those murders. Like you said, I think it would have it would have gave it would have been a little bit scarier of a movie. But I think the horror really lies in the imagery and the creepiness in this.
And the unsettling.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's at.
Yeah. Very, very unsettling. Overall, I think, despite me giving it a 4 as a movie, as far as like the way it was directed and the cinematography and the score and all the big things that go into a movie, I thought it was done really good.
Well, I want to end this by saying, tell us what you thought about Longlegs. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you notice something we might have not picked up on? We really want to hear what you guys think. So, with that said, once again, we thank you for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or the FBI about the show. And we hope to see you next time.